So every year so far on this channel, I've done a recap of all the content that I put out during the year with some thoughts on it and how it did, so let's get right to it. Off the bat, 2020, while in reality was one of the worst years of our lives, was actually this channel's biggest year in terms of variety and general growth, with a grand total of 47 different games Let's Played. Just like every year prior, it started off kind of struggling and catering to what worked in the past, but then it got a second wind with the launch of Patreon in the summer. However, looking back to gather some of this footage, I of course cringed at my own voice, and there may be some things to talk about at the end in that regard. But for now, let's break it all down month by month, just like the years before. January of 2020 had just seen a proper Let's Play of my favorite first-person shooter of all time, Perfect Dark, come to an end. I had been struggling to record that game for like 3 years in a manner that I was pleased with, but I finally got the emulation to work and I got it done, and even put together what I feel is my best review video on this channel comparing it to GoldenEye. And speaking of coming off of that first-person shooter kick, I started up a second GoldenEye randomizer to open the year, which of course was fun and went over about as well as one could hope. There was a lot of screen tearing though, so that kinda sucked. But otherwise I think it was better than the first GoldenEye randomizer I did in the year before. After GoldenEye, things changed, and in retrospect I can see that I was craving a change of scenery, a trend that would continue throughout the entire year. I started up The Sims 3, happy to finally have what I needed to record it. It's another one I was trying to do for years. At first I focused mostly on the university expansion, but then I did an Island Paradise homeless challenge of sorts. I had a great time with it, man. It was a lot of fun to revisit that game, but it saw little interest from the audience that watches this channel. Which is maybe expected, I don't know. I had fun with it. I think it's a good little happy bundle, but well, who knows? I'm not the judge. After that game ended, the hype for Animal Crossing New Horizons grabbed me, and so I did a mini-series of the original GameCube Animal Crossing that lasted just a few days. It of course was a jolt of nostalgia at first, but the terrible HDMI converter I was using caused a fisheye lens effect that kinda made it tough to watch. Well, crud. Immediately after Animal Crossing, I kept doing random crap that I wanted to do and dove headfirst into the always overlooked Wave Race Blue Storm. Being a huge fan of the franchise and only having done the N64 game on the channel, I figured it was time to get the sequel on it. And I knew all along, solely from the game's low popularity and terrible longevity, that it would be a low-performing series of videos, and it was. But hey, it was fun getting back into it for that short time, and I'm still hoping for Wave Race Switch. It's never gonna happen because nobody gives a crap, just like 1080. But come on, Nintendo, what the heck's the matter? Finally, January 2020 ended with Mega Man X Collection on the GameCube, covering the first 6 games of the series. I'm in the camp that believes the first game is untouchable, and it shows in the mass happiness that that video has. Mega Man X2, 3, and 4 were also decent videos, and of course fun to play again, but X5 and X6 I have a disdain for that carried into the video commentary, and my advice to you is go watch somebody else play those 2 games. I can stand here now and tell you in full understanding of my flaws that my Mega Man X5 and X6 videos are terrible, and will annoy anyone who tolerates those games if they haven't already. But yeah, X1 through X4 were alright. Now we come to February, and it's hilarious to me to see my desperate grabs to stay relevant. This month kicked off, of course, with a Majora's Mask randomizer in a terrified and despairing attempt to recover a phantom audience that stumbled upon the old randomizers in the recommended feeds. However, the burnout was very real, and the seed that I wasn't too thrilled to be playing in the first place died in a soft lock, after which I rage quit. So, moving on after that travesty, I got a burst of excitement about the Dolphin emulator again, and then I covered Sonic Adventure 2 Battle. And I don't know why I said it like that. But yeah, unfortunately, I didn't figure out widescreen settings until like a decent way through the game. But otherwise, it was a nice trip down memory lane, because I haven't played that in years. Even if at the end of all things, I learned that it's not as great of a game as my memory thought that it was. But I guess that's what happens when you get older, who knows. At the end of February, I did 2 more Super Metroid randomizers, totaling 7 that still exist in a playlist on this channel. The first one focused on an update to the Varia randomizer that happened in February, allowing for the shuffling of where you start on the map, and also the escape sequence. The second one I played as a Contra 3 sprite and dubbed in music from Contra 1, 2, and 3. But it also shared that same randomized starting room and escape sequence. To this day, dude, Super Metroid randomizers are my favorite randomizers to play. But then again, it is my favorite game of all time, so even just talking about it now has me itching to go check if any new updates happened. Because it might be time. I mean, Metroid Prime 4 is never going to come out, so yeah. Ah yes, now we come to March 2020. I was still very excited about all the games I could play on that Dolphin emulator from my GameCube past. So I kicked off March with 007 Agent Under Fire, a game I played the heck out of back when it was new. I absolutely loved revisiting it after all of these years, and I have absolutely nothing bad to say about it. And now even just thinking about it, I want to play those car levels again. Seriously, dude, the amount of time since being a teenager I wasted in that BMW stage is pretty sad, I guess, but it was the missing James Bond element from GoldenEye on the N64, and for that I love it. Anyway, after that, I mentally dubbed the rest of the month as Metroid March, kicking it off with another Super Metroid randomizer, this time the sprite being an 80s swimsuit Samus like the cheat from the NES game. And I think the options enabled in that one made for one of the more interesting randomizers I've done of Super Metroid. That was immediately followed by a semi-blind run of Metroid Zero Mission on the Game Boy Advance, and then instantly after that, a 100% best ending run of Zero Mission. As far as Metroid Fusion, that happened like a year or two prior to this, and that was still one of like the better standalone Let's Plays I've done in terms of how it performed. If only I could get the rest of this stuff to do as good as Fusion did back then. It's alright though. But I think I wasn't happy with the analytics towards the end of all of that, so I started up the third Wind Waker randomizer that I've ever recorded for this channel, this time playing as a Ganondorf model instead of Link. Of the 3 Wind Waker randomizers I've done, this one I think is the best. There were very few emulation issues as far as visual or audio or any of that crap. The starting options were a lot of fun and I think pretty good. And from what I can remember, I think the commentary stayed pretty much on track and was mostly lighthearted the whole way through. And that's how they should all be, but you know, sometimes stuff happens. Finally, March ended with the launch of Animal Crossing New Horizons, which I stuck to daily until a lapse of interest sometime in the summer. But that game continued all year long in bits and pieces, covering mostly holidays and other updates. Didn't do too well though. Definitely learned something. Covering a brand new game as soon as it launches doesn't always convert to good things on the channel. In fact, Animal Crossing New Horizons may be one of the lowest performing things I've done all year, which is strange, but also slightly understandable. It's one that's more fun to play than watch, I guess. And maybe I suck. Now we come to April. Knowing that Zelda is why the bulk of people subscribed, but sick to death of the 3D ones, I kicked off this month with a Link to the Past inverted randomizer, which starts you in the Dark World. I found it to be the freshest change-up to some of the same old randomizer crap, and Link's sprite was once again Ganondorf, kind of playing with the theme of this, escaping the crap realm and breaching the light world, since you start in the Dark World and all that. So it was a good one, I liked it. And after that was done, I got a spark of excitement about Final Fantasy Crystal Chronicles and did a one-off video of the GameCube version to build hype for the upcoming remaster. It did horribly, no matter how much hope I tried to muster in my stupid chair, but not as bad as the actual remaster performed later in the year. But more on that later. Moving on in April, still craving something different from a randomizer, I covered Time Splitters Future Perfect on the GameCube. A year or two prior, I did Time Splitters 2. And it just felt like time to do this one. It was another under-the-radar thing that not many people cared about or even saw happening, but that now puts the 4 big first-person shooters of my childhood, GoldenEye, Perfect Dark, Time Splitters 2, and Time Splitters Future Perfect, on this channel. So we're still in April, and what do you do if you're good old days gaming in a panic after a game you just played caught no traction? Zelda, until that fails too. Luckily, though, I went into Link to the Past Vanilla, craving just to get the hell out of the randomizer scene and simply relive the very first Zelda game I played and see all the dialogue again. Just chill out, you know? And I think it went over all right. It was some vacation. Sprinkled in there in April was a little bit of Mario Maker 2 stuff, but not really that much. But speaking of that, though, I still have to go back and finish my Super World, as the last completed one that I uploaded I think was my Snow World, which had a lot of cool levels in it, though. But I get the feeling nobody cares, and that game died, so maybe not. Maybe we'll just stop at the Snow World. I don't know. May of 2020 was one of the most slowed down months of the year. It literally consisted of nothing else but Paper Mario: The Thousand Year Door, what I like to refer to as the internet's favorite video game. Due to the extreme popularity of the game, I saw it as a last-ditch effort to see if a standard Let's Play with no gimmick on this channel had any chance of surviving, or if I really was either locked into randomizers forever or just dead. In a previous year, I covered my personal favorite Paper Mario 64, but I liked the sequel a lot too, and it was just time to do it. I was not nice about the concept of backtracking though, and since those grumbles entered the picture quite a few times, I still think my Let's Play of the other game is better. But a good game is always great to revisit, and there was a lot still to enjoy packed in there. As we entered June of 2020, the 1,000-year door finished up and my worries continued to escalate. I created a new plandomizer for Ocarina of Time with the theme of starting as an adult and having to fight your way back to childhood to find some scattered Triforce pieces and win. I had a lot of fun with that one, but I learned that plandomizers are only fun for me and don't go over as well as straight randomizers for you. I guess in a way that makes sense. But I felt pretty much defeated at this point, and a lot of you guys kept screaming, "Get a Patreon like I told you to do a year ago." And under that burial of defeat that I was in, I finally caved into the guilt, and in June 2020 launched a Patreon page with 3 tiers, the biggest perks of which were Discord access, questions and answers videos, your names acknowledged on the screen, behind-the-scenes content when I can do it, and voting on my next Let's Play. I definitely did not expect the support that came rushing in within the first 2 days, and I'm still forever grateful to you guys for it. Without you, this channel would have stopped sometime after June, I think. And your continued support is humbling and appreciated more than I can convey with any kind of words here. The rest of June consisted of a promise fulfilled, Mystical Ninja starring Goemon on the N64. Many of you had been asking for me to cover this for quite some time, but due to technical issues, I just couldn't. But I finally figured it out, and I got to share all the silly rental stories and weirdness of that game in what I thought, before Patreon entered the picture, was going to be my very last big Let's Play. For that, I'm glad the mood stayed happy the whole way through, and it was nothing more than simply revisiting a classic game from our past. It would have been a good way to go out, I think. But now we enter July of 2020, a statistical example of the difference between a happy me versus an extremely stressed out me, at least in terms of game variety. With the overwhelming support from Patreon, I got to ignore YouTube analytics and just focus on what matters. I kicked it off with the happiest Majora's Mask randomizer I've ever done as a thank you to all of you guys, figuring that would be the best first reward I could give you. The Patreon support also gave me a newfound freedom of choice without the care of everything else that comes with YouTube. And so I began July with a bunch of small-time Super Nintendo games. These included Marvel Superheroes War of the Gems, Power Rangers The Fighting Edition, the first Power Rangers game on the SNES, a netplay co-op run of the Comba Tribes with my best friend Ryan. That thing was awesome. And finally, Super Star Wars. All of these were a blast to revisit and full of mass happiness. Once again, thanks to you guys for the mood boost with Patreon. But following all those small-time games, I figured it was time to celebrate the Super Nintendo with something big, and that was Donkey Kong Country. It had been so long since I replayed this one, and I think it turned out to be one of my best Let's Plays. Hands down, if people asked me to recommend 10 of my playlists, this would be toward the top of that list. A lot of that is based on my happy mood, but seeing as how I constantly struggle to maintain that, when it permeates for the entire duration of a Let's Play, I consider that a massive accomplishment. And Donkey Kong Country's pretty laid back and mellow, so I never really got too hyper in it, so that's another good thing. Following Donkey Kong Country, I covered F-Zero X, which I only ever rented and goofed around with before. It just felt like time for a racing game, and though it was very frustrating toward the end, it was also rewarding to beat for the first time. I was definitely shocked at how the speed of the game didn't feel dated at all. And I mean, overall, it was a pretty enjoyable experience. After that, I played arguably the greatest Ninja Turtles game, Turtles in Time, over netplay with my friend Ryan again. If this channel didn't have multiplayer Ninja Turtles on it, the very name of it would be a lie. So of course I'm happy about that video. Plus, to actually get to play multiplayer with my longtime childhood friend again, do you have any idea how huge of a thing that is? But good things can't last forever. And immediately following that, he went about his work week while I covered Kirby 64 via an emulator instead of, something stable. I'm not proud of this Let's Play, because the emulator created a lot of visual glitches, and overall I found the game to feel too empty compared to other Kirby games, something I didn't remember from my time playing it as a kid. So it's there for nostalgia, and it was kinda nice, but yeah, that could have gone way better. We're halfway through, dude, and we come to August. At this point, I was analyzing my library of games and what was on the channel, and I was shocked that I hadn't covered the most pivotal year of my childhood gaming history. So August kicked off with Super Mario 64 and all the memories of that game, which remains to this day the thing I was most excited about ever in the history of this stupid body that I'm stuck inside of. Hand in hand with Mario 64, for me, is Star Fox 64, which I finally gave a proper Let's Play right after Mario, followed by a score run attempt. Considering how often I quote that game, I'd say it's about time it's on this channel with commentary. Could be a bit hyper though, I don't know. When I see R-Wings, man, something happens. Anyway, next up in August, to repair the Kirby 64 wound, my friend Ryan and I completed Kirby Superstar 100% over NetPlay. That still remains my favorite Kirby game, and the two-player experience really is different from playing alone, which I hadn't got to experience for a very long time. So I'm glad we were able to cover it right. Sure, the Discord voice chat can be iffy at times with its random quality drops and cutting out and crap. But I think we did alright, and we really hit our stride when it came time for Milky Way Wishes, which I think is both of our favorites. I'm still incredibly thankful that I can still play these games with him, despite everything else adult life brings to the table. Stupid table. The last of August, and up until it was eventually done, saw the hugely anticipated release of Final Fantasy Crystal Chronicles Remastered Edition. I waited, man. I sat and I waited in great anticipation, and I tried to rally up my old friends and prepare for what was going to be the biggest and best thing I ever did on this channel. A huge 4-player endeavor full of nostalgia like the true good old days of gaming in the basement when nothing else mattered. But the remaster gutted the very soul of the multiplayer experience, sending the internet into an uproar, damaging the reputation of the game, and what I ultimately created was a single-player Let's Play that is one of the worst things on this channel. Luckily, my good friend Ryan once again came in to save the day for a few episodes of 2-player and reminiscing, the way it may have gone if we got the full 4 players in. But by that point it was too late. Nobody cared about the game anymore, except for a few who were then mad at me for being disappointed in the game. And the whole thing is a giant mistake that I'm still pissed off about to this day. But isn't it just a perfect mirror to real life? You can't relive the good old days. You can try, but you'll always be disappointed that it's not the same. Thanks, Final Fantasy. I love you. Ya ass! September of 2020. This month stuck to the heart of nostalgia for those of us in our generation. Kicking off with Banjo-Kazooie. I did Tooie a year or two before this, but it was time to see what the fuss about the original was all about, which I had never played before. But you can't go that many years and not know a little bit about it, so it was a semi-blind playthrough, and I think it went pretty well with only a few moody bits, I'm assuming, I don't know, because it's me. But what can't Click Clock Wood fix? That world's fantastic, dude. In those moments when the power is on and Grant Kirkhope's tunes are coming out of the speakers, everything just feels right, like it isn't 2020. Immediately after that game came Super Mario Sunshine, another childhood classic that I greeted happily for pretty much the entire duration of the Let's Play, which by happiness standards means it's another good one. But both this and Banjo were recorded back-to-back with no breaks at all, as I was trying to build a backlog for when I was going away to England in October. So exact memories of those 2 weeks or whatever it was that I finished those games in, I can't really recall what happened. And also, part of that build-up of videos included Mario Kart Double Dash, which I always view as kind of like a supplement to Mario Sunshine since the art direction's the same and there's beaches and stuff. Those two were supposed to be all of October, but the release of Mario 3D All-Stars on the Switch forced me to push it ahead in hopes of riding the wave of relevance. You know, that wave that in all actuality, I drown inside of every time I attempt to ride it? Yeah, that one. So we're still in September here. And lastly, in September, I resumed my Mega Man Legacy Collection series that I had started like a year or two before. Back then, I covered Mega Man 1, 2, and 3, so this year I did 4 and 5. I was also about to do Mega Man 6, but I ran out of time before my trip and it kinda just fell behind other plans. But it will come! I think my commentary on Mega Man 4 and 5 was better than the ones I did the other year, but that could just be recency bias, I don't know. But I do know any time is a good time for Mega Man. Now we come to October, when I didn't exist. I was happily enjoying time with my girlfriend in England, away from all the YouTube stuff, but Mario Sunshine and Crystal Chronicles were still going up daily to fill that void. I also managed to record 3 videos of Super Mario Bros. 35, but the headset microphone I was using for that wasn't the best quality, so it's kinda iffy. I secretly was working on Tony Hawk on Xbox One at this time too, but you didn't know that yet. Anyway, just before October ended, I managed to put out a video of Halloween in Animal Crossing as soon as I got home, which was exciting and full of delicious candy. Alright, we're almost done, man. We're in November. This month started off with Hyrule Warriors Age of Calamity, the demo version, which did okay for the shortest amount of time possible thanks to just being recent news related to new Zelda things that people always highly anticipate. After those 3 videos, I released the Tony Hawk's Pro Skater 1 and 2 stuff that I had played while in England on Xbox One. That game is incredibly fun and holds true to the classics, but unfortunately due to copyright I had to turn off the music and later dub in YouTube's crappy free music just to try to get something going on. That decision alone caused people to say they couldn't get into it, so it was kind of doomed before it began. Also unfortunate was that I didn't get to record multiplayer matches of Graffiti with my girlfriend, which I think would have made for some really cool videos. So that was one I was super excited for that kind of fell on its ass when the videos actually came out. Luckily, it was followed by what I think might now be my best Let's Play ever. Link's Awakening on the Switch. This one was totally blind as I'd never even played the original Game Boy game or got very far somehow in watching other people's Let's Plays. I was also riding high off of my time spent in England and feeling good about life for once, so the videos were all pretty happy and ridiculous the way they all could be if I wasn't so screwed up in the noggin. The game itself was fantastic, and everything about the remastered visuals and music was incredibly inviting. Remember that top 10 playlist thing from before? I think I'd put this Let's Play in my top 5. I might come back to it someday too and play Hero Mode or whatever, but we shall see. The remainder of November saw a handful of videos from the full version of Age of Calamity, but I can already tell that's a series that is going absolutely nowhere, and it has been a big struggle to commentate more than any other game has been this year. It's a filler Zelda game, and unfortunately, my Let's Play thus far feels to be very much like filler for empty days. At least until the game gets much more exciting toward the end of its story, like Chapter 5, but come to find out the game is only 7 chapters long, so it's kind of a late time to start getting good. I don't know, we'll see how it goes, but I don't expect it to go. And lastly, we come to December, which is entirely about Spider-Man on the PlayStation 4. This too was recorded immediately after my trip in England, still super happy about life and trying new things. You want a fun statistic? Between Link's Awakening and this series, it was 52 videos recorded in just 16 days. That's how fast I was pumping these things out, but I don't think it was rushed content. I was simply happy and very hooked on these games. Spider-Man blew my mind, having played mostly Nintendo games my whole life and never before seen that level of presentation in a game. One of my promises too on Patreon was to use the donations to expand the type of content that I play, specifically delving into more PlayStation and Xbox territory for the sake of variety. I figured starting with this Game of the Year title that I myself have always wanted to play would be a great way to start it up. However, the audience interest level is extremely minimal, which is worrisome for future PlayStation content. I'm unsure if it's the cutscenes and dialogue that make me talk less that makes people not care, or if I just arrived too late to the game, or if I just suck. Regardless of subscriber interest, I enjoyed the hell out of the game and would probably even put it in my top 10 overall things because I was entertained as if watching a movie. But perhaps many think differently and just want more randomizers, and then after that, more randomizers. Anyway, it hasn't happened yet as of me making this video, but I also plan to release a few Animal Crossing videos that cover Turkey Day, Toy Day, and New Year's. And well, there you go. That's everything that happened on my channel in 2020. 47 different games fully Let's Played, man. I don't know if that's overkill or just kinda normal. but I do know that it meant daily uploads all year long with just a few brief exceptions. To do daily uploads requires plowing through a large variety of games, and I think this year finally exhausted the remnants of my childhood library. At least the big name games. After 3 consistent years of content, this channel now has a playlist of pretty much every single game that I played as a kid or a teenager for any significant length of time. With just a few big things still missing like Super Mario World. And man, it was scary going all year. But I cannot thank the Patreon support enough for enabling me to continue during this difficult financial year we've all had to endure. So what does this all mean going forward into 2021? Well, a lot is still uncertain with the state of the world, and I have a pressing health insurance issue that I desperately need to figure out. So if that entails obtaining another job, there may be a significant decrease in content I put out as I shift focus onto a kind of like a more normal life. But I don't want to do that though. I want to make changes to the Patreon rewards to maybe do away with the behind-the-scenes things that I'm kind of running out of anyway, and replace it with live streams of some kind or live chats on a certain day every month. Either way, a goal for myself in 2021 is to figure out live streaming, as it's really the only thing left that can breathe new life into those same old randomizers, for example. That said, you Patreon supporters on Discord are working to build a Majora's Mask randomizer seed for me to play based on that community vote in that poll that I did recently, and I will do that at the start of the year with a happy and thankful attitude regardless of how I'm truly beginning to feel about those things. But I guess it does feel like time for a randomizer. I also think live streaming could bring my commentary back down to where I like it to be, so that I'm kind of more human and less of a character. Because man, looking back at some of my videos is painful. The constant Jim Carrey voices, the incessant talking to fill every possible second with commentary instead of just laying back once in a while. The reliance on energy drinks to fake happiness. It's been 3 years of this with only slight improvements. And I think I need to figure out how to make things more professional so that this regret can stop. I may now have a channel full of playlists of major childhood games, but why watch them when you can watch a long play with no commentary? There is a conflict here between the video games and myself, where both would almost seem to find success separate from each other. But these are just things on my mind, and I don't know yet how I'm going to resolve these issues, but I'm definitely bothered when I sit back and reflect upon my uploads, the total lifetime of the channel, and my actual age and progress in real life. There's stuff to figure out, basically. But regardless, the only other thing that I'm currently working on as I make this video is the rest of Hyrule Warriors Age of Calamity. But as I said earlier, I feel those videos only get interesting during the game's final handful of missions. But I now have a PlayStation 4, and I'm still looking at the PlayStation 5, which opens up a giant door for variety and games of a different flavor. And there are still tons of classic games that I've never played, but are good old days games to many of you, like Crash Bandicoot or something. So I'd imagine in 2021 there will be a lot more blind playthroughs going forward. And probably still sprinklings of randomizers, especially if I can do them live one day. It is also a massive anniversary year for The Legend of Zelda, so if Breath of the Wild 2 becomes a thing, or the Oracle games get remasters, or Skyward Sword gets a Switch port, you know I'm gonna be on that stuff. But anyway, I won't keep you any longer. There's a lot to think about in 2021 and a lot that has yet to be seen, but we will cross all those bridges as they come. Thank you for making this crazy year one of the biggest for this channel, and all of the immense thanks I can muster to you Patreon supporters for helping me keep going and branching out to new things. I hope to improve both the Patreon and YouTube experience in the coming year and continue to make the community behind the channel more visible and interactive. I also greatly want to work on myself and my commentary so that things are more mature and laid back, because while it's good to be happy at random, I don't think there's a need for that energy drink hyped up Bill that makes stupid voices with no room to breathe. And I'm still ashamed that slips in every now and then after 3 years of doing this stuff. Anyway, thanks again to you all. We made it to the end of this dump of a year, and here's to hoping everything improves for all of us in the next one, wherever we end up. Thanks for watching. Take care.